everybody. Chris McCabe of E-commerce Chris back here with Ephraim from Technical Logistics Solutions. Ephraim, how are you doing?
Doing good. Good to be here.
It's good to see you again. We've had you on our video series at least a couple of times. This might be the third, I think, which means you're smart and you know what you're talking about.
Exactly. If Chris is smart, he asks the right questions, and I have to answer the smart answers.
I'm going to try to keep him smart today. We'll try to save the stupid questions for the end when no one's listening anymore. But yeah, good to talk to you again. And around the beginning of any year, I'm always saying what's different this year from last year so far. At this point, we're only a few weeks in, but I have a feeling in our world, a lot has changed over the last 6 to 8 weeks. And I have a feeling a lot has changed for you, but I'll give you a chance to kind of summarize what you're seeing from people. And maybe it's just a series of new complaints that you didn't have a few months ago, but what do you think?
Right. I mean, it's still like the talk of town is still AI. Is still a huge piece of changes that every few weeks we see new things, new pain points. Amazon has experimented this, experimented that, but it's not really in my wheelhouse where what I deal with. But that's obviously a very big topic that I see a lot on chats and Facebook and different places. The main thing that changed this year, two things for Amazon. One thing is they stopped doing the relabeling, bundling, and all that stuff. They closed that down as of January 1st. So that's a big change for resellers. That was a huge part of their business where like they like arbitrage and stuff like that. They used to send it into Amazon. Amazon put on the labels, and that was it. And also commingling, that also went away, I think, end of last year. So that made it even harder also for the resellers. That's one thing. The second part that's pretty interesting is the AWD aspect, right? Amazon came in with AWD as a cheaper alternative versus 3PLs like me. And they did make it pretty juicy in the beginning where overall rates were a little bit high, but getting it from AWD into Amazon was a cheaper part that they struggled with for a while. It took very long. I think they're getting better and better with time, but shockingly, they said like, they said at Accelerate, we're not increasing any rates this year for Amazon. And then a few weeks later, they come up with, we're going to increase AWD on the West Coast. So my conspiracy is, again, I can't confirm it because I don't know.
We love conspiracies.
Right, exactly. So is that Amazon starts like with the West Coast, okay, I'm going to increase it there. And then once that's increased, then East Coast comes in second. And then automatically they raise the rates for AWD as a whole. So that's basically what's happening. So for a lot of sellers, especially that spend more than 2 months in AWD, it used to be around 3 months. Now it's around 2 months is where the break-even point is. So like take a 3PL rate card and take AWD rate card. Talking about a decent 3PL that charges normal, not too high, not crazy low, somewhere in the middle. You'll see around by the 2 month period, you're breaking even. So with AWD, your risking is like, I don't know exactly when it's going to hit FBA. Once you do a transfer, Amazon takes their time. They could be busy, congested, whatever the excuses Amazon has. So if you're usually, and most sellers do store approximately 3 months of inventory at a time. That's usually the case based on my data that I see with my client base. So we went from a break-even point where, yes, AWD is a little more smoother because you're using the same platform for AWD, using FBA, it's the same Sell Essential, you use it for everything. Now they going to start giving up more of their profitability if they stay with AWD. So in that reason, we created this calculator. I saw you posted about it on LinkedIn. It's a very easy, you just dump in the numbers that you would pay on your end. Let's say if you use a 3PL or you use your own warehouse, you put in whatever is your cost, and then it compares it to AWD, and then it compares it also to Amazon Partner Carriers trucking versus AWD's trucking versus like our trucking, or if you have your own trucking code, you can put in your own numbers, and then it will spit out the information like what's the cheapest option. And you could play around with the months. Like it's going to be a 1 month, then obviously AWD probably will be cheaper. Is it going to be 2 months, 2.5, 3, 4, 5 months? And then you could see how much revenue you're making, how much profit you're making more or giving up by using that.
Yeah, one reason I shared the calculator on LinkedIn is because this year, as opposed to prior years, I mean, we get a wide variety of queries and complaints and questions, but this year we're getting questions from all over the map. Even things like what I was talking to you about a minute ago before we started recording about Amazon isn't checking in my inventory, but it says it was delivered. What do we do? I mean, we don't work on logistics stuff normally, and that's a problem, like you said, that Amazon has to help you fix. Amazonians have to help you fix. So we're starting to poke around and like, how can we escalate these internally to fix them? But I know I'm going to be getting questions more around what you do, which is easy. I can send them your way, but it also shows that there's just more confusion and a little bit more chaos. And then you add to that, without opening up a can of worms, but you add to that some of the layoffs and some of the teams at Amazon thinning out on top of their usual interpersonal communication problems or inter-team communications, which within Amazon have not historically been great.
Right.
So you're going to get more questions. I'm going to get more questions. And it's just like, I've realized that we just have to, whether it's on this video series or on LinkedIn or in person, like you're going to be going to our meetup in New York on February 12th, which we'll put in the show notes. But whether it's in person or online, everyone's going to have more questions and want quicker, better answers on everything that has to do with selling. I mean, it could be ads, it could be anything, because people can't afford to make revenue mistakes anymore, right? Competition is just too ghastly or beastly, I guess. And where we see it, again, without opening a can of worms, we see it on the appeal side, where people like, it could have taken 3 days to get the listing back up and they take 3 weeks because they weren't doing it right. I'm assuming there's a comparable or a parallel within your world where people are costing themselves money and they don't need to. It's just a mistake. So what are like the top mistakes, maybe one or two that you see people doing now that they don't have to really go through?
Right. So like on the part where, like you were saying, people are starting to ask, like, what do I do with Amazon? They're not, it shows delivered, they're not received it. So where that comes in as a big factor is Amazon, I think, asks you to wait at least 72 hours after delivery time till you can open up a case. Except for that changed recently, but I believe it's 72 hours. It's super important to have proper documentation so you can show Amazon it was delivered. If it was Amazon partner carriers, where I believe a lot of these questions that come in is probably when they use Amazon's carriers, is Amazon could show delivered. It could sit there for 2 weeks in their yard, but they didn't check it in, and then it will sit around. So when you're looking at, okay, I have a lot of competitors, running out of stock is a death sentence to my listing. I have to spend a lot more on PPC and all that. You try to see like, okay, should I use a third-party trucker? The benefits from using a third-party trucker is, first of all, you get all documents. Amazon partner carriers you don't get because Amazon is doing it, so you don't need documents technically. So that speeds up the process of a case. Second part is that all third-party logistics companies that deliver with their own appointments are live unloads, meaning so like Amazon has to check it in and receive it on the spot. So automatically that helps out a lot, because once Amazon checks it in and receives it in, if there's missing product, you could right away open up a case once the receiving window is closed. And usually it closes around 24 to 48 hours after the delivery happens. So that basically could a lot of times help people. If you have something that you need to send in urgently into Amazon, I would not risk it with Amazon partner carriers, because you might have a scenario where it sits 2-3 weeks in their yard and nobody touches it.
Wild.
Yeah.
Your inventory that could be selling, and then it's like, you know, you could be losing sales rank, right? While your stuff is sitting there, there could be so many unintended consequences of the inventory not even getting checked in.
Right. Yeah, but it affects so many drivers, because it affects your PPC. So I now have to lower my PPC so I don't sell out as much. Automatically your ranking goes up. Meaning, so like you're selling less, so your ranking changes. You're not a bestseller anymore because you're trying to keep your inventory in stock and not run out of stock. There's so many different variables that changes that you have to be on top of once you're not in control of your inventory. So it's a very risky thing to do. People that have 10 to 12 weeks worth of inventory that can afford the 2-3 week period of Amazon delivery, it's fine. Go for it. But if you're more in just-in-time inventory, it's a bit risky.
Yeah, and I'm curious because I've been interviewing people from all over the Amazon space and spectrum on our brands. I mean, brands that are feeling the pinch, and of whether it's storage fees, rising ads costs, whatever the expenses and costs they have that are more challenging than they were before, alongside tougher competition. Are you seeing people like trying to save in places where they should not be where they shouldn't be pulling back investment. They should be putting more in to spend more to make more. Have you had to convince people like this is where you need to invest? This is not the right place to scale back or spend less because you're only going to kind of hurt yourself in the long run.
I think it's on the logistics part, unfortunately, because there's so much. For a lot of sellers, they're very good at building their brands, right? But they're not great on the logistic, on the back end, on the moving parts of it, right?
Yeah.
And when they look at it, it's like, okay, like AWD sounds so much more smoother and easier because I use the same platform to get everything in. And then you could even have the automated button where it automatically replenishes from AWD into Amazon FBA. If you're not seasonal, that could work. But if you're seasonal, it's a death sentence to your listing because you're
Yeah.
overstocking. But all these things are sometimes people are like, okay. And then they look at it was December a month ago, right? Now we're end of January, and you're really looking at your P&L and looking through your costs. It's like, oh my God, like my Amazon FBA fees and AW fees were like through the roof. And like
Yeah.
last year in 2024, I made, let's say, 15% profit margin, net profit margin. And this year I'm like around 9-10%. Like where did that 5-6% go to? Did my product costs go up? Yeah, maybe tariffs was a factor, possibly. Was it Amazon fees a factor? And if it was Amazon fees a factor, where are those fees? Where did it increase? Is it just FBA costs because I had too much stock in FBA? Okay. But is it AWD combination with FBA that is increasing more my costs versus in 2024, I use a 3PL and it costs me less? Like, you have to look at really all these numbers. It's boring. Logistics is not a fun, exciting piece of your business, but I think it could easily wipe out a couple of % of your net profit if you're not really diligent and really looking at every single aspect of what's increasing my rates. Because people are looking at PPC is going up in rate, right? Like it goes up every year. So I'm spending every year more on PPC. I'm spending more every year in logistics. But like, what changed this year? Yeah, tariffs was a factor. What changed this year also is that Amazon is a factor, right? AWD was very aggressive in 2025, not as aggressive in 2024. So a lot of people switched over last year. So you have to look at those numbers, right? And then you can look at Q4, like, did I overstock in Q4? And then Amazon storage fees are through the roof in Q4. So all these things is super important to look at. And I feel like usually the first quarter of the year is the best time to really figure out your numbers, see, do I have to raise my rates? Do I have to negotiate with my supplier to get me better product? All these things are usually like, it's like when you go for a doctor for a checkup, like you go, let's say once a year for a checkup. I think like January, February is usually the checkup time where you just look at everything, what I did last year and what could I change. So my perspective is on the logistics side, look at what you could change. On your end, it's probably look at your, I mean, you could say yourself, you probably know better than me, but like, don't play games with Amazon and do certain things where it's going to cost you your listing, and then you have to do suspension, or don't think you're the smartest person in the room. I could deal with my suspension myself. Like all these type of scenarios, it's a time where you'll really look at it.
Yeah. So we're doing this thing in Manhattan, February 12th, you'll be there. You're going to talk to people in person. They're going to have questions for you. They always do. And I think we had you as a speaker at the meetup a couple of years ago. I don't remember exactly when it was. And I'm sure people had lots of questions for you then. Do you get these random questions like I'm getting overcharged because I asked them to remeasure the dimensions and they didn't do it right? Or is it just pure logistics 3PL stuff?
It's always different. Like this year, a couple months of the year was warehouse related stuff, but the tariff time, it was a lot about tariffs. Like what can we do about it? Is there any workaround? Like people became a lot more creative than they used to because the CBP, that's Customs Border Protection, actually put out certain ruling where you can actually play around with, let's say you sell pens, okay? And then there's let's say it has plastic, this piece is plastic, this piece is metal, right? Metal has a different tariff than plastic.
Yeah.
Now you could actually dissect the product and say how much % is this, how much % is that, and you could actually play around with the tariffs and get potentially a better rate. It's paying less because you're actually putting together like a knife, for example, right? You could say a knife till now was a stainless steel knife, but it has a plastic holder. You classified it as my cost is $3.50, and it was classified as a piece of steel, right? Now people are being more creative because the steel is higher than regular product. They're classifying the handle as plastic and a certain dollar amount of that, and then the rest of it goes on the actual metal, the stainless steel piece of the knife, and that's that. And they're saving, let's say, 2-3%. It's not a lot,
Mhm.
but everything makes a difference, right? So I could go talk hours about these things, how you could get creative about things, but the point is
Yeah.
like I'm excited to be on February 12th, meeting you over there with a lot of sellers. And I've been a couple times by your events in the past.
Yeah.
And you have a great group, great following where a lot of smart people in the room, they really want to learn, they really want to understand. And it's not like you don't get that experience where like, oh, I know everything. You don't have to tell me I'm a big seller. Like everybody's there
Yeah.
to help each other and share knowledge and things. I love being part of that.
Yeah. And just real quick for anyone not familiar, we'll put it in the show notes, but Leah McHugh is going to be giving a compliance talk. She works with us at e-commerce. Chris, I'm doing a Q&A with Chris Berry, who works at Amazon on the seller success teams. There's a variety of additional layers of support Amazon's offering brands this year, which we can get into there in a Q&A session. And Andrew Smith from Swapped is speaking. And Liz Herrera is going to be talking about TikTok, which I know you wanted to talk a little bit about some trends. You're a bit more up on the TikTok space than I am. And you were saying something interesting right before we hit record. Do you want to just run through that real quick?
Yeah, so TikTok just announced that they are taking over the whole shipping part of the TikTok marketplace. Now, a lot of people are confused about it. Is like, do I have to only use, because TikTok has Fulfilled by TikTok, you can use Amazon multi-channel fulfillment. People think that they have to now move out of their 3PLs or move out of their own basements or garages where they're shipping TikTok shop orders, and they have to use only Fulfilled by TikTok or use Amazon multi-channel fulfillment. The answer is it's not the case. What they are changing is that you cannot use your own shipping labels. So a lot of people used to get, like, there's companies out there that have a big contract and you could get an account number through UPS and you get 50-60% off. And it's basically a pool of hundreds of people that are using the same account. They just a bunch of umbrellas onto that. So that they're stopping. So you have to use, if you are shipping from your basement, garage, or a 3PL, now we have to start using a TikTok Shop's shipping module where we have to use their labels. So if you save yourself 30, 40, 50% on shipping labels, if TikTok is 20, 30, 40% higher than what you pay till now, this is the consequence that's changing now, that you have to use their shipping labels at their price, whatever they charge. So that's the big change. But again, if you can look at multi-channel like MCF, multi-channel fulfillment, if that's a cheaper option for you, you could opt into that. If FBT, like Fulfilled by TikTok, is a better option for you, you could look at that. But it doesn't mean that you have to pick yourself up for where you are right now. And in the TikTok world, there's a lot of such sellers. It goes back to the Amazon years ago, where people used to sell out of the basements and garages, things like that. So TikTok is for a lot of creators and people that are 20, 25 years old, like they're starting something new, and TikTok is their place where they're selling. They're still selling from their houses or their apartments. So they don't have to freak out that it's over. It's not over, but your cost might go up.
Good to know. I'm always, I'm always eager to up my TikTok IQ. I'm always Amazon all the time. So it's good to have different speakers, different backgrounds, different knowledgeable people like yourself. I think you're knowledgeable from years of selling and years of being a service provider. So Ephraim Ausch of Tactical Logistics Solutions, thanks so much for your time. How can people reach you directly if they want to find you and talk to you? And if they're not seeing us in person on the 12th?
Sure.
Yeah.
First of all, if you're in New York, you better be there because it's going to be a really nice couple of conversations that you're going to be having, and then one of your coworkers, and also a TikTok conversation. So that's super exciting. So if you're in New York, make sure to mark that date. If you want to reach me, LinkedIn is probably an easy place where you can connect. Ephraim Ausch. My email is Ephraim@tacticallogistic without the s.com. And then where else can you see me? I think that's about it. That's the easiest way to get to me.
Sometimes in Vegas.
Yeah, sometimes.
We'll see. Well, thanks for taking time out of your hectic, busy schedule to talk to me today. And thanks everyone for listening in. If we don't see you in a couple weeks in New York, we'll catch you next time. Have a good one.